Good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday, May 20th, 2022. Welcome. This is a regular meeting of the Commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach. We are live at City Hall, Commissioners Room, second floor. Glad to see everybody here. I'd like to call this meeting to order at exactly 2:01 p.m. With that, would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll start off with roll call. Commissioner Tony Sharp.
Here.
Commissioner Jay Legree.
Here.
Commissioner Ed Chernowski.
Present.
Commissioner Susan Gay.
Here.
Commissioner Patrick Gossett is absent. Commissioner Tim Bennett.
Here.
And Mayor Stan Mills is here. We have a quorum and are able to formally conduct business today. Welcome, everybody. I want to welcome those that are watching us virtually, live streamed or recorded. Also want to thank everybody that's here in person today. Appreciate you being here. And as you know, we'll call on members of the public at the appropriate times during the meeting to get your input and feedback. Also like to remind everybody that when available, documents that support agenda items are embedded into the agenda. Go to the city website, the city portal, search out the date of the meeting, and go from there. You should be able to access any of the support documents that we can access, again, if they are ready ahead of the meeting. If they're not ready till after the meeting, then they're typically embedded after the fact for your access. With that, I want to identify that there has been no correspondence identified. With that, we'll go to approval of minutes. There are 4 sets of minutes. The set of minutes on March 15th, 2022 for the special meeting is not yet ready. So in front of us for consideration of approval would be the following minutes. Regular meeting held on January 21st, 2022. Special meeting held on May 10th. Executive sessions, plural, held on March 15th and May 10th, all in 2022. Are there any changes to be noted in the 4 sets of minutes? If not, can I have a motion to approve the slate of 4 sets of minutes?
So moved.
Second.
So I have a motion by Commissioner Chernowski and a second by Commissioner Gay to approve the slate of 4 minutes as noted. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? And that is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, we will move on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, members of the public. I'll start off with the street aid expenditures. We have $9,209.72 for Delmarva Power and $2,253 for Apple Electric, and the total amount $11,462.72.
We have a motion to approve the street expenditures, or, yeah.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jay Legree and a second by Commissioner Chernowski to approve the street aid expenditures in the amount of $11,462.72. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, and the motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move, let you continue. I always did that to the other city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So as you all know, we had a pretty significant storm hit Mother's Day weekend, so I just wanted to provide a brief update on that. We've put out messaging on the city's website and via social media to let folks know what they can expect in Rehoboth Beach this weekend, which is that the entire stretch of Rehoboth Beach is open, and we're ready to welcome visitors. As a result of the Mother's Day nor'easter, though, we're currently experiencing extremes related to the tide. You may have noticed that the beach is wider than normal at low tide and narrower than normal at high tide. In addition, 5 of the city's 38 dune crossings are currently closed for safety reasons. All of those crossings are on the north end of the beach, and we've provided dune fencing across the entrance to those dune crossings. You may have noticed too that we have rolled out the Laurel Street wheelchair accessible crossing. So we've installed the Moby mats there, which has additional mats that have been installed on the beach for easier wheelchair access. We will continue to provide public updates as we head into Memorial Day weekend, and we hope, but we have no confirmation at this time, that DENREC will be able to assist with repairing some of the dune crossings next week. So we'll continue to keep you updated on that as we learn more. Regarding the Delaware Avenue restrooms, the contractor is pushing hard to have construction on the Delaware Avenue restroom addition completed by Memorial Day weekend, but it's going to be a close call. The contractor this week and next week is working on finishing the decking and installing the flooring and fixtures in the facility, and the older restrooms remain open and accessible to the public. An update on our communications channels. The launch of the new Rehoboth Beach Beacon Alert System has seemed to go smoothly, and we're pleased to have 1,580 subscribers to the text email alert system to date. The notifications, again, are designed to be timely and to let subscribers know when there's an issue in the city that might impact their safety, access, or their plans, such as closed roads, repair efforts, or canceled events. You'll recall that the Beacon Alert System did replace Code Red, so we encourage everybody to sign up by texting REHOBCH to 888-777. Also, the communications office produces roughly twice monthly digital newsletters called Lines in the Sand. The newsletter has about 5,100 subscribers that receive information about the city's initiatives, news, updates, and events. And you can sign up to receive the newsletter to your inbox at the cityofrehoboth.com/lines-sand. Sharrows have been installed. Almost 150 sharrows were painted on Rehoboth Avenue, Bayard Avenue, Henlopen Avenue, and State Road this week, as a reminder to motorists that they must share the roads with bicyclists. An update on the Verizon antennas on Rehoboth Avenue. They're working to complete the installation of the 5G antennas of the 4 poles on Rehoboth Avenue by Memorial Day weekend, and an electrical inspection has been scheduled for Thursday of next week. We did have a successful start to the parking meter season. Just a reminder that parking meters are in effect from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily. Permits are also required in non-metered areas from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Additionally, I do want to mention that due to short staffing in the parking department, the lobby of the parking department will be closed from 6 to 10 p.m. However, somebody can be reached via phone. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions of the city manager? We'll start over here. Commissioner Legree?
Are you aware of any more of, in addition to those 4 poles that Verizon has installed on, is this, how many, what are their plans?
Right now, that's all that we know in terms of their current plans. I saw this week that the antennas have been up, and again, they've scheduled the electrical inspection, and then I'm sure shortly after that, we'll start to see the lights go on as well. There will be a shroud that would also be affixed to the pole itself, so the appearance of the poles right now will not be how they appear when they're finalized.
Thank you. As you recall, they said that was the extent of their plans for 2022, so I'm interested.
Yeah, we have not received any further applications at this time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just had a couple questions about the beacon system. First of all, how many subscribers did you say? I missed the number. What are we up to?
1 second. We are up to currently 1,580 subscribers.
Okay. You mentioned how people could sign up for it by texting to a number. Is there a different way to sign up than text for those who can't text?
So after they, I don't know if there's an option through the website. Okay, so they can.
On the city website? Where? Okay. Okay, yeah, I see it. Okay, thank you.
They couldn't hear you, so that's on the cityofrehoboth.com webpage
Sign up is easy, yeah, here, okay.
under Beacon, yeah.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah, but I like her to
Yeah,
state
yeah.
if,
Rehoboth.com and then Rehoboth Beach Beacon
Right.
page under residents.
Got
very
it.
good, thank
Okay.
you.
And if email is the preferred method too, I mean, you can subscribe via email as well and note that.
Okay. It's all one
Anybody
place.
else? Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to the city solicitor's report.
Thank you, Mary. The only thing I had to report is late last week, we did have another case litigation filed against the city. It's 330 Hospitality Group versus City of Rehoboth Beach. This is the case, remember, the commissioners denied a request for a change in zoning. The Planning Commission recommended denial, and then the Board of Commissioners did deny it. It was filed on May 13. The city has not been officially served yet. The insurance company is defending the case, and Dan Griffith has been appointed as the lead attorney. I've worked with Dan quite a bit. He's really good on these sorts of cases, so he's a good draw. Any questions on that?
I actually have a question. Was that your only update?
That's it.
I saw in the paper this morning that the hearing for the Beach Walk case in the Supreme Court has been set for July 20th.
Well, thank you for reminding me of that. It is set for July 20th. Thank you.
And I guess my question was, is the public allowed at that?
So that is an open hearing. The room is probably about maybe that many seats on that side of there. So get there, and then if you're not there on time, they close the door and they will not open
And
the
they
door.
aren't broadcast or anything, right?
They
aren't
are
streamed?
broadcast
They are
now.
streamed.
Now they've started streaming them.
Okay.
Over COVID, they started streaming them, and that's the way I usually view them.
Okay, great. I will-
And you can get it at the Supreme Court's website,
Okay, great.
Delaware
Thank you.
Supreme Court.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And just to follow up on that, after that hearing, what's the likely next steps?
We're in a 90-day, everything in the courts is pretty much on a 90-day cycle. So they have about 90 days to issue a decision, and they typically take the full 90. The Supreme Court typically takes the full 90 days. Some of the other courts don't, but I would expect the Supreme Court to take most, if not all, of that 90 days. But that's it. We're now at a final decision.
So that 90-day clock then starts on July 20th, we now know, right? Okay.
Well, is that true that, not to question you, but I thought when I asked this question before, because I have to remind myself, what are the next steps? I thought there could be a potential for something in federal court. Did I make that up?
That would have needed to be filed by now. So I don't see a federal lawsuit coming in this. I mean, there's always a possibility of a motion for re-argument, if it goes the wrong way. But we're really at the end. So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Glenn. With that, I overlooked identifying staff that are here today and participants in our meeting. I'd like to welcome City Manager Evan Miller, City Solicitor Glenn Mandalis, Robert Downs, Department Head for the Water Department, Lynn Cohen, Communications Specialist, and Chief Banks, Chief of Police. Thank you all for being here also. Ann Womack, City Secretary, and her assistant, Linda Travers. Thank you for being here. With that, we'll go to the next item of business, which is departmental reports, and those are embedded into the agenda, so you can read them electronically. We're not going to go over them. Board and commission reports, none have been identified or submitted. We'll move on to the next item, which is committee reports. We're going to hear from Committee Chair of the Stormwater Utility Task Force make a presentation, and then the same Commissioner is Chair of the Boardwalk and Beach Committee, and he has a report embedded that I don't think he's going to give orally, but you can access it in the agenda. Go ahead.
I'm going to need someone who can understand this computer to come and help me. I don't seem to be getting anywhere. This is called Be Prepared.
Look for Windows Explorer or something on the computer that brings up your thumb drive.
I don't, the computer's not coming on. That'll do it. the interim city manager can do more than just be the city manager. He operates all these machinery. About 3 months ago, we organized a stormwater utility task force. And with the intention that it might be possible we would have a stormwater utility. And one of the main tenets of having a task force is to have citizen participation, stakeholder participation, and that's what we've done. I want to say just a little bit about the history of stormwater management in Rehoboth Beach. A lot of us have been thinking about it and talking about it for a long time, but back in 2012, the Planning Commission did a study of Silver Lake. And I'll show you in a minute, Silver Lake is a major part of the stormwater management, the stormwater processing, the stormwater handling in Rehoboth Beach. And the study that they did in 2012 was a definitive study, and they found a lot of things about Silver Lake that we didn't know before, but we've discovered that are very important, very critical. And then in 2017, when we were getting our permit for the ocean outfall, DNREC asked us to do a stormwater quality study of our downtown outfalls. And as we all know, Grenoble and Maryland, Rehoboth Avenue, and Delaware and Laurel, we have 5 outfalls, stormwater outfalls that empty out into the surf, but beyond the surf line, but that empty out there. And DNREC wanted to know the condition of those outfalls before we pumped the first drop of water out of our outfall, and because they wanted a background study, and that makes a lot of sense. And so we did that. We did a study in 2017 from June until October. It was done by GHD, and they found out that we're in pretty good shape. We had some minor glitches right around the middle of town. There was some enteric bacteria that we found, but we stopped all that just by good maintenance and good attention, and we've been in really good shape ever since. So that study came in 2018. It was reported on, and then we started just the last 3 years. The state of Delaware said, "Hey, it's getting warmer out there. The ice caps are melting. The sea's coming up, and here's Delaware. We have a lot of coastal towns that sit right against the ocean, and sea level rise is a very critical thing as far as resiliency of the communities, and there are a lot of things that go along with sea level rise. You have groundwater coming up. You're much more vulnerable to storms, and we have that. So Delaware, the state of Delaware, is interested in sea level rise and resiliency and our ability to mitigate the problems of climate change. And with that, they brought money to the table. And with that, a lot of the local towns, Rehoboth is one, Bethany, Lewis, Fenwick, all the towns up on the Delaware coast began to be interested in stormwater management and anything that had to do with recovery from storms or mitigation of the dangers of the problems with sea level inundation. And we found that there were several agencies in the mix, and I have them listed here. DENREC, University of Delaware did some studies. Delaware Coastal Management Program, we teamed up with NOAA. There's a lot of funds that are going to be available for another consultant was KCI Technology, ACOM Engineering, GHD, which has done a lot of work for Rehoboth, has helped out, and they were the ones that did our study that I just talked about that was reported in 2018. And then the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who at the present time are doing are working on a lakes management plan for Rehoboth Beach lakes. And so there's a lot of people are working on projects and trying to mitigate the problems of climate change in coastal communities. In February of 2020, Rehoboth Beach signed a contract with AECOM to study the feasibility of a stormwater utility, and I'll talk about that in a minute and why we're doing that. But we agreed to have a task force, which is what I'm going to report on right now to tell you how we're doing, and to evaluate the need for a utility and then try to determine the best path and find some recommended things we might do. There's a lot of options, and we're looking at those right now. And once we decide on a stormwater utility that might be the best way to go, we'll put together a program and a package and present that to the commissioners, and then after that, present that to the people of Rehoboth Beach. Our stormwater in this town consists of 2 lakes, and we have an additional 4 outfalls into the surf. And that's where almost all of our stormwater goes. So we have a fairly straightforward problem, is to manage the stormwater that goes either into the ocean through the outfalls or into the lakes and then into the ocean through the lake discharges. Can everybody, I will point that out. You can't see. Silver Lake down at the bottom down here of the map. This is the map of the stormwater outfall and the stormwater lines and the manholes and grates for the stormwater system in Rehoboth Beach. You can see this green area here. All of that flows into Silver Lake. 51% of the water in Silver Lake comes from stormwater, from Rehoboth Beach stormwater. And the rest of it comes from rain and watershed from the areas around the lake. But 51% is a big percentage. If we stopped our stormwater, Silver Lake would become a mud flat. And so we have a kind of like a symbiotic relation. We give Silver Lake stormwater, and stormwater goes in and sits there for a day or 2 or 3, if it can have that long, and it becomes clear because the suspended solids settle out. We get dieback of almost any enteric that are in our stormwater. We've just passed a reg here on our ordinance on oil and grease. We're really minimizing the oil and grease, so we probably have really clean stormwater in Silver Lake. And the stormwater sits in Silver Lake, and the next time it rains, it flows out, and it flows out that there's an outfall at the very bottom of the map over there, and that outfall goes out into the surf, just like the outfalls that are up in the middle of town. And the outfall from Lake Gerard comes out Grenoble. We have a outfall at Grenoble Place. The next time you walk down the boardwalk, take a look at out Grenoble, and you'll see the outfall from Lake Gerard. And Lake Gerard does the same thing. It gives the stormwater a time to be detained, to settle out, to clean up, and then to go out into the ocean. Now, the ocean is a lot more tolerant of nutrients than if we were putting our stormwater into Chesapeake. But we don't have very many. They're pretty clean. The study we did in 2018 showed that. Anyway, that's primarily our stormwater map for Rehoboth. And what the Stormwater Task Force is doing is trying to see how we pay for all this. The Public Works Streets Department ends up spending about $600,000 a year on stormwater. They do it with salaries, with checking the grates and the drains and keeping them clean, with upkeep, repairs to our equipment, and Kevin and Evans, Public Works Director Williams and interim city manager Miller sat down and calculated the amount of expenses that's coming out of the street department that's actually going to stormwater. And they came up with about $600,000 a year. In addition to that, we have capital expenses of, the area around Deer Park needs storm drains, needs storm lines, needs the pipes, needs to be installed there, and that's going to be about $1.5 million to do that. And there are other ones that follow. We need to do Bayard, and there are places around town that need to be repaired. So we have some capital expenses that are going to be significant. And then the Silver Lake outfall also needs to have some work done. But these are capital expenses that we have to plan for and we have to provide for. Fortunately, we're in really good, considering all the things that we need to do, we are handling our stormwater really well right now. Everything that comes out of those outfalls is clean. DENREC comes by 2 or 3 times a week, I think, and does grab samples in the surf line all summer long because they want to keep track of everything for the tourists, and it's safe. And we haven't had a glitch for years, and we need to keep it that way. And we're doing that by funding the status quo, but the status quo is funded out of the budget, out of the street department. So we need the stormwater utility needs to take a look at that, and we are taking a look at that, and we're trying to decide. The task force has looked at current requirements. We're looking at future requirements. We're looking at data. We're looking at dollars. We're looking at whatever we think we might need in the future, and all of our documents, all of our materials posted online. Ann has done that, so you can see what we see. And right now, we have decided that we need to have a funding mechanism of some kind. We need to take the requirement to spend $600,000 out of the budget of the street department and not have the street department suffer for the stormwater requirements. And so we have come to the conclusion that we need to think about a separate mechanism for funding. So probably we're going to talk about setting up a utility. And there are a lot of ways you can do that. There are a lot of things, as opposed to just putting a tax on everybody. So that's where we are right now. And I wanted to kind of lay the groundwork, the background, so that the next report I give will be written and you can read it from the agenda. Does anybody have any questions? I'm sure I've made myself less than clear.
I have one question.
Yes.
As you were talking about the funding mechanism rather than the streets budget,
Yeah.
is there one primary reason that you've already come to that conclusion?
Yeah. Because the amount of money that we're going to have down the road, 2028, 20 on down the road, is going to continue. We're going to have a $500,000 a year expenses from here on out. It's not going to get any cheaper. There are a lot of requirements that the state is making. We anticipate that we'll have to do testing and check our levels of everything. And it's just a lot of money to come out of the street budget. The street budget is like 1.4 million right now. And as I just indicated, that taking 600,000, or actually it was 590 they calculated, is probably just too much of a burden on the street department. And so we need to think about an enterprise fund of some kind. And that was the consensus at the last meeting. Ask me another question.
I'll pass for the moment.
Usually you have plenty. But yeah, that's why. It's just too much money to chunk out of the street department and let them go back to taking care of the streets and let the stormwater be handled by the Public Works and its own enterprise fund. That's our opinion right now.
So Commissioner, you would anticipate it would be an enterprise fund?
Yes, I think we need an enterprise fund because the money's got to come from somewhere, and probably it needs to come from just adding a tax on everybody's tax bills, probably not as equitable as you'd like to have. And one of the tenets of having an enterprise fund is so that it's defendable and it's equitable and it makes sense to the people who pay the money. And so what we'll probably do is try to figure out some way to make an equitable fee for everybody. That may be the percentage of impervious surface. It may be square footage. It may be a designation of what kind of tier you are. Are you commercial? Are you residential? Are you mixed? Or where you're located? How much area you have? But probably we'll end up recommending a fee of some kind.
Is the task force also looking at federal funding, infrastructure funding, things like that, or that's not in the purview of the
We're
task
looking
force?
at both. We're looking at infrastructure funding and we're looking at O&M funding. We say to ourselves, okay, the city needs 600,000 for the status quo. We could do that. Why don't we just do the O&M out of the enterprise fund and let the city figure out how we want to do the CapEx? And that is a legitimate question. And we might do a hybrid. We might take 40% of the impervious surface in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware street. So that's a city responsibility.
Right.
And although city money comes from taxes, but still we might have a hybrid where we take we fund part of the O&M through the enterprise fund and fund maybe a third of the capital expenses from the enterprise fund, and let the city worry about figure out other CapEx. Thank you very much.
Wait a minute, I have a question. Are you done? Were you, okay. I'm all in favor of the enterprise fund, as you know, but you mentioned that some of the 40% of the property being, you know, city property. And I'm also reminded, just because I happened to read it just this morning, of an example from Dewey Beach with their infrastructure program, that it's funded through a number of sources, and it's not property owner. You know, they have some of the funds from their parking fees, they have some of the funds from building and licensing fees, that sort of thing. So I hope as you build a hybrid that it's not all on the backs of the property owners, and that some of the funding comes from other sources of city funding, such as those.
And that is a valid option. That is a very valid option. And I would hope that we would consider that. Lewis funds theirs in a different way.
Yeah.
Wilmington has a different type of funding. There are a lot of stormwater utilities, and there are a bunch of ways to raise money.
Yeah.
We're just trying to have something that's fair, that's equitable, and that is very legally defendable. And we're just talking right now, but we've come to the consensus, we did at the last meeting, that we need to find another source of money besides the street.
Well, and Commissioner LeGree, I'm very excited, if I heard you correctly, that it sounds like we might be looking, or you might have some recommendations for incentives for
talked
green
about that,
green
yes.
infrastructure, and
You bet.
that would be, I can't tell you the number of people who ask me, why can't we have, or would we ever have green roofs
Yes.
in Rehoboth? And what are the incentives if you're taking up, you know, some concrete area for
bet.
doing it with a substance that is really helpful to the environment?
Yes, indeed. And
Great.
there are more than just a few. There are a group of the task force people that want to get right to the incentives
right
now.
Good luck.
Are we
Yeah,
okay?
got your work cut out for you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And again, the Boardwalk and Beach report is supplied, but it's embedded in the agenda. Make sure you take a look at it if you'd like to see it. With that, we're going to go on to the liaison reports. Commissioner Susan Gay is the representative liaison to the Chamber of Commerce.
And Carol is here to give a report.
I'll start by saying hi to everybody. Haven't seen you in a while. I'm going to give you some stats first. Occupancy. So we look at Wednesday night, overnight stay on a Wednesday night. January through May 9 of last year, 25,131. Same date, January 1 to May 9th of this year, 29,953, quite a jump. Saturday night, bigger jump. January 1 to May 9, 35,684 in 2021, compared to 43,037 this year. And I can tell you by making the calls to the accommodations, pre-bookings are up. So right now, it looks like we're going to have a repeat of last summer. Events that we've been doing, Merchants Attic Shredding Day, sidewalks going on this weekend, sidewalk sale, all very successful, 8 ribbon cuttings. Movies and bonfires start in Dewey on June 20th. I do want to tell you about the job fair. I found this kind of said everything in one nutshell. We held several job fairs last year. And while we had up to 70 or more businesses that wanted to set up, and we held it 2 different days, 2 different times, very low cost, we only had 47 people come to apply. So this year, of course, we're being asked to do a job fair. So we decided to do a very small one, only take 30 vendors, 28 businesses set up because they were short of staff. So I had 28 out of 30. There were 42 applicants, 42, and I ran around and asked, how many positions do you have? Those 28 businesses had over 1,000 positions available. To me, that said it all. Everything that we're seeing, that was just said it all. I did want you to know that at the Visitor Center, we will be selling for DART the daily weekly and monthly bus passes. So those are going to become available. We're trying by Memorial Day. It could be the first week of June. We're waiting on, like everyone else, there's a shortage of everything from paper to ink. So it's been quite a challenge. Visitor guides are out. We do 140,000 of those. Dining guides are being delivered next week. So those will begin to be out next week. And I wanted to give you the advertising. We do both regional and local advertising. So local might be something you see in the Cape Gazette, like for this weekend for a sidewalk sale or a restaurant week, that type of thing. But we also do regional in USA Today, Southern Living, Good Housekeeping, all those. When those leads come in, we send out, they're asking for the visitor guide. We send out the visitor guide. Even though they've looked at the website, they still want the visitor guide. So we actually will run out of those in November every year. So we do 140,000, we'll run out by November. We want to run out before the end of the year, and we do. And I wanted to mention to you about this restaurant week. The week before and after a holiday can be a little lighter than usual. So we chose a Sunday through Friday, avoiding a Saturday night, and we chose June 5th through 10th, which is right after the Memorial Day weekend. And really, unless you have something else that you'd like to ask me, that's my report. Oh, there she is.
I'm sorry. I just have one question, and it's as a result of watching an interview with one of our local stations, talking to some local visitors to Rehoboth, and one young lady was very clear that she would be skipping her beach days because 45 minutes to drive over here takes half of her tank of gas, and with the prices expected to rise, she's just going to skip that. So I'm just wondering if the chamber board, or if y'all are talking about, do you foresee or do you project any major impact with day visitors?
Well, it's hard to say. I've been here for quite a while, and we've seen high gas prices before. It did not impact us. We believe the reason is you have over 20 million people within a 2.5-hour drive. So, the advertising that goes out, not just from us, but from you're a tank away, is that going to deter you from having your day at the beach or weekend or week at the beach? It didn't before. We're not going to know till we know. We don't know what we don't know. But it doesn't appear that way when they're calling in, when they're pre-booking. That would indicate they're not planning on changing their plans. That help?
It does. I completely agree. We're not going to know until we know, because this is like a perfect storm with the gas prices, with all of inflation globally. This is not the past, in my opinion. So I'm sure everybody will be watching very closely.
I agree. The only indicator we have is that pre-booking that appears that those that are coming, because those are mainly a day or a weekend visit at the accommodations. We're not talking a week-long rental. And my week-long rentals are very strong. So, okay.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to the liaison to the Historical Society, Commissioner Legree.
We're starting the walking tours again, and take a look on the website, Rehoboth Beach Museum, and come and take a walking tour. They're great. Also, we've set the date of our beach. Our beach ball is our biggest fundraiser of the year, and we're going to have that on September 10th this year. And it's going to be just like always. We're going to go back to the Kings Creek Country Club. Everybody's going to get together, and we're going to have a great time. So keep those two things in mind. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. With that, we'll go to the liaison to Rehoboth Beach Main Street, Commissioner Chernowski.
Thank you. We've got one of the board members, Cindy Lovett, here. She's going to give an update. Linda, can we just make sure the mic is on? Okay, thank you.
Do you want me over there or here? Doesn't matter.
That's fine.
Okay. Yes, Cindy Lovett representing the Main Street. We have had one heck of a couple busy weeks, let me tell you. We had the Gumbo Crawl, which sold out, 1,000 tickets. We had the Oldies Dance, finally, after 5 tries. We had 250 people attend. By all accounts, everybody had a blast. We're already scheduling for next year. We're super excited. We are going to limit it to 350 because we just don't want to make it too tight, and we want everybody to be able to dance. The Margarita Crawl sold out. Another thing. It's been a lot. We did have Dan go to a seminar, Main Street seminar, where there were 1,000 people. He was very careful. We're glad to hear, and he has come home like gung-ho with excitement. We can't wait to get his report. The Oldies Dance, as far as we can tell, cleared $7,000, which we're very excited about because we have several projects that we're looking at. One of which is we got permission from the city to create what I'm calling for right now, the Canal Side Garden, which will be as you're coming into the city between the museum and the sidewalk, that entire area we're going to clear out. And I met with Warren Goldie to try to get from Lewis and Bloom to get some ideas of what he would do. And I'm getting a plan, and we're hoping in fall that we'll be able to plant that. We did have to replace, we planted our flowers on May 3rd, and as everybody knows, this lovely storm hit. We've so far replaced $650 worth of flowers because the storm just wiped them out. As of now, we're hoping to just be normal Tuesday maintenance, and the flowers will get beautiful. Cottage and Town Awards kicked off. We had a little luncheon. If anybody knows a business or a new home, a business that's been renovated or new, or a home that's been renovated or new, we have 4 categories, and you get a really cool plaque for your business or your house. Nominate someone, that'd be awesome. And the promotions committee has our newsletter is growing like crazy, and it portrays businesses downtown and events, and it's doing really well. Our click rate is just getting bigger and bigger. Promotions committee has a couple events upcoming, a holiday crawl, which will be, I'm not exactly sure, I'm not in that committee, but it sounded like the Cocoa Crawl, but it's gonna be Christmas related. And it's gonna really feature the retail industry as opposed to the restaurant industry this time. And the community unity dinner is just about planned already. Those guys are crazy. So yeah, we've had a really good stuff. We've got a great group at Main Street. So proud to represent. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. With that, we'll go to the liaison for Cape Henlopen Senior Center, also Commissioner Shanowski.
Thanks, Mayor. The one thing I'd like to update is they started their pancake breakfast again just yesterday. I was unable to attend. Were you able to make it, Mayor?
Yes, I was,
Good,
absolutely. I
so-
was one of the first ones in.
So I will report when those are happening, but the first one since the pandemic was this week. So happy that those are back. That's all I've
Is that
got.
it? Very
That's
good.
it.
Thank you very much. With that, we're going to go to the first item of old business, which is to discuss current restriction in the zoning code disallowing use of 2 abutting lots in different ownership for patio dining, and consider whether or not to amend the zoning code to remove such restriction and allow use of 2 abutting lots in different ownership for patio dining, and also to consider whether or not to extend the date of revocation of outdoor dining on private property approvals beyond June 1st, 2022, including consideration of maintaining or loosening the 750 square foot size restrictions for dining patios. Just want to start out with a reminder of the date, June 1, 2022, which is the date that all outdoor dining areas on public space that were authorized during COVID come to a conclusion, and to put out a new outdoor dining space on public space, you have to reapply and be authorized. Also like to remind everyone that same deadline date of June 1st applies to other restaurants that serve alcohol if they've modified their interior or patio dining floor plan, then their restaurant must come back into compliance with their approved permit of compliance. In other words, if you have a restaurant that has a permit of compliance and you have exceeded your permit of compliance because of the suspended rules during COVID times, by June 1st, you need to come back into compliance with your permit of compliance or your supplemental dining patio permit of compliance. I want to remind everybody actually why we are actually here tonight. And why we initiated this at the last meeting. Need you to envision 2 lots side by side. Lot A is owned by Stan and Lot B is owned by Marcia. And it's, no, let's make it, let me start over. Why does- Stanley owns Lot A and he owns Lot B. They're same ownership. You can cross the lines with the patio and that's fine. Now, Stan shares Lot B, owns Lot A and Marcia owns Lot B, different ownership. Our zoning code does not allow that patio to extend to the second property. Now, what if Stan owns A and Stan owns B, but in a different entity, a trust or something? Then that's still different ownerships. You're not able to do that. So I'd like Glenn to explain the code that is causing us to look at this.
Right. So one of the main issues is the definition of accessory use, which is, so a dining patio is an accessory use to a restaurant. So the definition of accessory use makes clear that you can't have that accessory use on a second property under separate ownership. So that's one of the reasons we're here talking about, can you or should you as a group of commissioners permit patios to exist on an abutting property that is not in common ownership. Somebody else owns that second lot. You have that question before you, then you have the question before you as to whether to extend the date that the mayor has talked about, June 1, 2022, for outdoor dining, those relaxed outdoor dining areas that were approved during the pandemic. Are there other things you wanted me to comment on there?
No, I think that's fine, but I do want to go into some more background if you indulge me. Primary focus today is to decide on whether or not we want to facilitate the use of neighboring property that's in different ownership from the main property that the restaurant sits on. That's our primary focus. Remember, we're not talking about outdoor dining on public space at all. That talk is not entering into our picture. So what are some options today? If we do not want to facilitate the use of a neighboring property of different ownership from the main property the restaurant sits on, if we do not want to facilitate, then we do nothing. Now, what happens is doing nothing does not stop the possibility of it still happening. Doing nothing still allows the restaurateur to request authority to use a neighboring property of different ownership from the main property the restaurant sits on by seeking a variance from the Board of Adjustment, which hears requests for variances of the zoning code. If the restaurateur goes this route, then let's be mindful that there is a requirement for a public hearing in front of the Board of Adjustment, so the public gets to voice their opinions on the variance request. And if the variance is approved, then the next step is for the restaurateur to then seek a supplemental dining patio permit of compliance, which gives the public another opportunity to voice their opinion at another public hearing. And then after that, the next step would be to seek proper permission from the Office of the Alcohol Beverage Commissioner, which adds to time constraints. The reason I'm bringing this up is for an awareness for all the opportunities for public involvement and that there's a time component there. These things take time. So one thing we can do is do nothing, and people can go to the Board of Adjustment. The other thing that if we do want to facilitate the use of a neighboring property of different ownership from the main property the restaurant is on, then the path forward might look like the following. One, we would all, or a majority of us would agree to consider amending the zoning code or seek to amend the zoning code to allow use of a neighboring property of ownership different from the main property the restaurant sits on. Then we would adopt a resolution to set a date for a public hearing to amend the zoning code, because again, we're talking with the zoning code with specific processes for amending the zoning code. Third, we would conduct a public hearing, and reminder there that that's another opportunity for the public to give feedback. And then we would, after that hearing, vote to amend or not amend the zoning code to allow use of neighboring property of different ownership. So takes time, being mindful again of the time component. It could take up to, and help me there, maybe a month and a half to get to a vote to amend the code. And then you still need to apply for a supplemental dining permit of compliance, which again requires its own public hearing and affords public additional opportunity to speak, but that can add another month to month and a half to the process. And then you apply to the Office of the Alcohol Beverage Commissioner, which again takes time. Now, I would like to have Glenn, Matt's not here, have Glenn address, Commissioner Gossett posed a question at the last meeting. That is, what is the view of the Office of the Alcohol Beverage Commissioner with respect to this concept of allowing a restaurateur to use the property next door if it's in different ownership?
So my understanding, Mayor, is that the Office of Alcohol Beverage Control Commissioner will honor whatever the local jurisdiction approves. So if it's allowable under our code, the office will permit it and will go through with its permitting process and approve it. So that should not be an obstacle to getting an approval from Alcohol Beverage Control Commissioner.
Very good, thank you. So with that, if it is favored to consider a zoning change to allow for use of a neighboring property of ownership different from the main property that the restaurant sits on, then again, we need to be aware, just for our awareness, that it can consume 2 or 3 months of time to be able to do that. One thing we could consider, based on all that time, is allowing the restaurant to use patio dining on private property, including on neighboring property of different ownership. We could suspend the normal rules for dining patios on private property as we did during COVID, as doing so postpones the need to seek for the restaurant, postpones the need for the restaurant to seek supplemental dining patio permit of compliance, so they can get right into it and go to the alcohol commissioner and seek their permissions much sooner than if we go through the other processes. So one thing to facilitate that, one thing we can consider, and it's on the agenda for consideration if we want to go that way, is to extend the revocation date of June 1st, 2022, which is only, I think, 12 days hence from now. We can extend that revocation date of June 1st to a future date. I throw out there November 1st possibly, because I believe that would give us adequate time to address a proposed zoning change, a possible motion. I'm not ready for this at all, but I want to throw it out there so that we can include this in our discussion and as we go forward. A possible motion in this would be to move to extend the June 1, 2022 date revoking the allowance of dining patios on private property which are not in compliance with the code, extending that to November 1st. Provided the area or areas of the dining patio is limited to 750 square feet maximum. Now, we talk later about that size limitation, and that could either be in the motion or not, but I'm just throwing it in right now again for a discussion point. So, I will share with you that Missy Postles, I don't know, Miss Egg did pose to us a question at the last time, or she made a statement at the last meeting that her preference would be, rather than to utilize a 750 square foot maximum restriction, which is the current restriction for outside dining patios on private property, to instead, could we consider an equivalent number of seats? I did pose that to building and licensing city manager, and we're not ready to make a determination on that. So what we would be acting on, if we acted on it tonight, would be the 750 square foot limit. But that's something that we will be giving attention to. It just needs a little more time and analysis because of the ramifications for it. So what I'd like to do is open up for discussion among the commissioners, and then we'll go to the members of the public. And I think what would be efficient would be to address item number 1, talk about amending the zoning code to remove such restrictions to allow use of 2 abutting lots on different ownership for patio dining. Then we can go to item number 2. Commissioners, what's your favor?
I'm all in favor of amending the zoning code to allow dining patios to be on adjacent properties that have different ownership.
Commissioner Sharp?
Mayor, I need to understand something. On the zoning code, you talked a great deal about the time constraints that would be imposed on that kind of change. And to me, that's a disadvantage unless I'm misunderstanding something. Isn't that a disadvantage for the property?
It can be.
Well, because-
It can be, absolutely.
What I'm trying to get to is what really bothers me about, it's not that a zoning code change bothers me. What bothers me is June 1st.
Well, and that's why there are solutions here.
Yeah.
Number one, remember, one option is we do nothing and they go to the Board of Adjustment. And just going to the Board of Adjustment can take a month and a half to be advertised, published, and accepted. And if it's not able to be slid in there, it could be 2.5 months.
Yeah.
So there's a time component there. The other option that if we go with saying we agree to seek a resolution to the zoning code, amend the zoning code to allow this kind of situation, so that allow a patio to be established or extend from the main restaurant property of one ownership to the abutting property of another ownership, absolutely, that I explained can take up to 3 months. The solution there for me, because I personally, I'll share my opinion, I am very amenable to consideration of and discussing changing the zoning code. I want to know what more ramifications are versus sending them to the Board of Adjustment, but I'd like us to seek and go that direction. The savior there time-wise for the restaurateurs that want to do this is by extending the revocation from June 1st for dining patios on private property. Remember, we're not talking about those on public property, but for private property, and extending that to November 1st that's almost immediacy to double check, I guess, with building and licensing. I don't have them here to double check the process, but double check with them, and then you go to the alcohol commissioner much sooner so that they can actually operate this summer, because the option 1 to amend the zoning code means nothing would be done for this summer. Now, we could certainly do that, and we could, the majority could vote down extending the revocation and just say, we're just going to leave it to amending the zoning code. So that's all perhaps up in the air. So hopefully that answers your question as far as timeline. So again, my position on, well, I think you've kind of read my position on, I'd like to go and seek the zoning amendment change. And then when we get to number 2, I'll share my opinion on that. Anybody else?
Well, I think from a timing perspective, if there's any hope for this summer, we can't. The zoning change is not something we should be doing today. I mean, you're not proposing that we would complete a discussion today on it anyway, right?
Oh, no,
Just that-
absolutely not. And
Okay.
the vote, again, the motion, well, I haven't read the motion, and this is a draft proposed motions. Move to seek an amendment to the zoning code to allow use of an abutting lot in different ownership than the lot the restaurant is on for use for a dining patio.
Say the first part of that again.
So
Move to
move to
consider?
seek, move to seek
I think it ought to be considered.
an amendment to the zoning code. So I'm interested in having a motion tonight on this so that we can legally poll all the members and see, do we want to proceed this? Because I'm ready to proceed it. I don't see any need to have to wait on this many more months before we initiate that. But again, in the meantime, if we want to propel some of these restaurants forward, then we will entertain extension of that revocation. So again, any commissioner further comment before I go to the public? Commissioner Bennett. yes,
Should we
sir.
do the easy thing first and decide that we're going to revoke the June 1st date as a hybrid, and then we can consider the code?
Well, we're in the middle of the first one. Let's finish the first one and go to the public.
Okay.
And then we can go to the second one and we can vote on them in whichever order that you're comfortable with. Is that all right? So on our topic on our agenda, that when I go to the public, if you want to speak out, is just on item number 1. I'll give you an opportunity later for item number 2. And number 1 is to consider amending the zoning code to remove such restriction and allow use of 2 abutting lots in different ownership for patio dining. Again, you might be for it, a zoning change that allows this, makes it a lot easier on you all in the future. You could also be against it and say that the Board of Adjustment is the way to go. So I'm saying that to both the public and to us. Is there anybody out in the members of the public that would like to speak up on this? Please.
Carolyn Diefendorfer, 113 Newcastle. In my mind, I think you should move forward with that. I don't, as long as the business, the restaurant, has an agreement with both property owners that, to me, the issue is the restaurant, who cares who owns the 2 pieces of property as long as the restaurant has an agreement with both? You know, to me, that's the bottom line. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. If nobody else, I'll close the public portion for that section. I just want to reiterate that I actually say that I agree with Carolyn in this respect, that if there's the same owner of 2 lots, how does it look different if the second lot actually has a second owner, different owner? I don't understand the difference and why we would not want to have that ability or allow that opportunity for a restaurant to extend or establish their dining patio onto a neighboring property, even if it's in different ownership.
So, Mayor, you know, I always try to boil it down to the simplest thing in my head. To answer Carol's question, who cares? The only one that cares is the zoning code. Am I right about that? So it's not any of us necessarily who care. It is a document that we have to grapple with in the timing situation and the discussion and the notification to the public and so forth to really get to where we want to be. And that's who cares, is the zoning code that cares.
Right.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I have to say, I don't know about anybody else, and I've not been well, so who knows what I'm saying today. But all of this kind of stuff is so bureaucratically annoying to me. And I can imagine how it really feels to either a business owner or a private person. So when we do get to whatever consensus we get to, I hope it is the most straightforward, simple, time-sensitive thing we could possibly do today.
Well, and I want to say publicly that I appreciate your ability to condense everything, because I certainly don't have that ability.
We make a good team on
Thank you,
occasion.
thank you.
Texas talk.
The other thing that we need to be mindful of that I think is a benefit going forward with seeking a zoning change is that it requires a public hearing. The public will get their input. And then if it's successful, the restaurant then would be able to do their thing. They would still need to go for a supplemental dining permit of compliance. And that's another opportunity for the public to be able to speak out and give input. So,
Mayor, can I make a motion?
you certainly can. Do you want?
I'll let you tell me if this is not good. I move that we consider amending the zoning code to remove such restrictions and allow use of 2 abutting lots in different ownership for patio dining.
I'll second that.
Yeah, it has the magic word "consider" in it, which is we spent 5 hours talking about on Tuesday with the CDP, is an important component.
Well, we've got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Srnowski and a second by Commissioner Jay Legree to essentially seek or consider an amendment to the zoning code to allow use of abutting lots in different ownership than the lot the restaurant is on for a dining patio. That's a paraphrase. We'll use there's actual motion in the future. Is there any further discussion of the commissioners?
I've tried to figure out why that was there in the first place, and I'm not, as Commissioner Sharp said, the ordinance cares, the zoning code cares, but I can't figure out why we would do that in the first place. I can see if you had two totally unassociated properties, but when you have a binding contract, I just don't understand why that's there. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, when we move forward, I think part of our analysis will be to look at the pros and cons of what we're doing. And so that would be part of a legal analysis to maybe give us some thought on that so that we're not getting ahead of ourselves and doing something.
And I had always thought zoning goes with the land, right? Glenn? So that's a question I have, and then that's why I think it's not in there now, is that the land can change ownership, but the code remains the same. So I don't know how that factors in, and those would be among the questions that I didn't want to get into today, but that's what I'd be looking at.
Thank you.
Just for a little bit of clarity.
Yeah.
So we're talking about an accessory structure existing by itself on a property, and that's what the zoning code doesn't like is, for example, a swimming pool without anything else there or a garage without anything else there. This would be an exception to that general rule that you can't have just an accessory structure on a lot by itself. This would be an exception to that rule that would allow for a dining patio.
Well, while this motion mentions amending the code specific to putting dining patios on that abutting property, we may choose at that time to expand it to swimming pools or whatever, at the same time.
Don't say that word.
Small inflatable swimming pools. Is there any further discussion among the commissioners? If not, I'll call the question. Again, in simple form, it is to move forward or consider amending the zoning code as noted. Commissioner Sharp?
Aye.
We don't need an explanation because we're not in the zoning code yet. Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Legree?
Aye.
Commissioner Shanowski?
Aye.
Commissioner Susan Gay?
Aye.
Commissioner Tim Bennett?
Aye.
And the mayor, chair votes aye. Also, the motion's carried unanimously. So we will be seeking to move forward in that path in the very near future. With that, we're going to go to the second item of old business, which I'm going to read again. In the agenda says, consider extending the date of revocation of outdoor dining on private property approvals beyond June 1st, 2022, including consideration of maintaining or loosening the 750 square foot size restrictions for dining patios. I know at the last meeting, let me start off again with what a potential motion could be. Move to extend the June 1st, 2022 date revoking the allowance of dining patios on private property, which are not in compliance with code, to November 1st. And again, I put in there, provided the area or areas of the dining patio is limited to 750 square feet. So I guess what I'd like to do is start off, I know last time, two commissioners, Commissioner Sharp, you weren't here, two commissioners mentioned the desire to go back to the way it was, which was actually suspended. We suspended the rules on dining patio size. So let me start off with continuation of my thoughts from last meeting. And that is, again, my desire to condition the motion to limit the size to the equivalent of current limitations for dining patios on private property. Current size limitation for dining patios on private property, 750 square feet. This is in the zoning code, 270-19, and it's part of the zoning code. We suspended the size restrictions during COVID, reacting to the governor's mandated indoor seating limitations. I think we need to be mindful that now, of course, the indoor seating capacity is restored to 100%. In earlier public discussion, the commissioners unanimously agreed to a discussion on size limits, but that would occur post-summer. if not for bringing this new topic up, we would not be entertaining discussions of size restrictions until after summer. No restaurateurs that I know have approached me about asking for a size increase. That is until tonight. And egg owner Missy, I don't recall last time you were indicating that you just wanted the change in seating size limits rather than square footage. So I believe then, I still believe now that post-summer is the appropriate time to analyze and discuss size. To do this gives us the opportunity to do so deliberately and with plenty of notice and time, not rushed. And I would ask that my fellow commissioners please consider directly to adhere to this plan. I open it up for the discussion among the rest of the commissioners before we go to the public.
Mayor, could you explain what is significant about November 1st?
It just gets us through this summer and just puts an end date to it. If we ever wanted to change it, we certainly could. But I would expect by November 1st that we would have the zoning issue resolved and start to return to some normalcy.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'll speak up first. As you know, I'm not in favor of the including a size limitation on it. One, it's an indication from me that when we do just discuss this topic after the season in more detail related to the zoning code in general, I see no reason for it. And it's an indication that I don't plan on, unless there's a very good reason, keeping the size limitation on dining patios. And if we're extending the revocation date, which I'm completely in favor of doing, to November 1st, some of the businesses that have utilized their outdoor space may not have invested a lot in the areas. Just for example, I think those tables and chairs are pretty easily moved. But there's other places that have invested a lot with sand, with building benches, with other things that I wouldn't want them to waste that investment at this time. So I will not be in favor of moving this forward with a size limitation based on that. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Well, one question I have, and I
Commissioner
didn't think of this till Commissioner Shanowski just said that about investment, but, you know, there's also, we've had several permit of compliance that have come to us recently that have had patio space, and they've put a big investment into creating the 750 square foot patio space. So does this revocation affect them? In other words, can they now go and expand beyond that? Whether they want to or not, I don't know, but they would have the right to, whereas a month ago, they didn't have the right to, and they move forward accordingly. So I kind of wonder where that group fits in.
Well, depending on the motion could certainly be conditioned so that it extends the revocation date only for those restaurants that want to utilize the property next door when it's in different ownership. So we could do that. The motion could also be more generic so that it applies to not only restaurants that are abutting property of different ownership, but to apply to all restaurants on private property. Again, nothing to do with public space. And if so, then that would likely benefit even more, and the answer would be yes, that other establishments, even though they're already at their 750-foot limit, square foot limit, could expand, yes.
Can
Are you finished?
Yeah, that was just my
clarification on that part, because what we're doing is extending the revocation date of June 1st that applies to already approved properties. So this wouldn't allow, I don't know, some other business that was not utilizing space due to the, this really is just focused to those that had a special application to building and licensing because of the pandemic.
Oh, so it's not for everybody?
Well, I think you would have to make that clear in the motion. Like, give Glenn 10 seconds to think, cogitate,
No, I think-
cogitate,
I think-
8, 7,
I think-
6, 5.
I think you'd have to clarify that in the motion because the initial action of the Board of Commissioners was to suspend the rules relating to outdoor dining and patios. So those rules got suspended and there were allowances for greater than 750 square feet. And in areas, so in these, on private property. So I think that if the initial action was to suspend the enforcement of those provisions, if you're extending the date, people could still come in and ask for additional approvals for patios on private property. If you want to preclude that, I think you need to say it in the motion.
I agree, and just so you know, I probably would not be interested in the restriction because I think it penalizes all those that to date have chosen not to expand or establish patio dining. Anybody else? You finished, Ed?
Yeah.
Anybody else before we go to the members of the public?
So is your thought, Mayor, that you want to include the 750?
I would like to. And
It just feels like-
honestly, I think it is the fair thing to do.
It feels to me as if we're overcomplicating it, but I agree with Commissioner Shanowski on that.
Well, let's go to the public and see if they can sway us also. Again, what we are talking about this session is considering extending the date of revocation of the outdoor dining on private property approvals beyond the June 1st deadline. And then the second part is including consideration of maintaining or loosening the 750 square foot size restriction for dining patios. Is there any member of the public who would like to address either or both of those things?
Can I ask a question before we do that? Just one last clarification. Do they still have to get approvals from building and licensing, or is this sort of open season?
Still have to go through the process
Okay,
and get
that's what I thought.
approvals.
Okay.
What they do not have to do with this process is go back for a permit of compliance.
Right.
And I think maybe I didn't omitted saying that, but that's very important because as long as you meet the criteria and get the authorization from building and licensing, then it saves you that extra step and time component. Chip, you had your hand up. You stand in front of the podium there.
Mayor, could I read that draft motion?
Motion?
That you had?
We applaud the
Bottom
revocation
one.
of June 1st going over to November 1st. And by the way, Tony, that's also because it's the end of Seawitch. Okay, so it's a great date. There's a few of us in town that misinterpreted, okay, the rules in the zoning code that said that our porch counted towards that 750 feet. Even though it's part of the building, even though it's on foundation, okay, the code says, or that's the interpretation of the code, says that our porch counts against the 750. So when we and other restaurants did our outside 750, we did 750, okay? Now we're being told, well, that's, if we leave 750 in there, okay, we would have to cut back our outside area, okay, because of our porch. And there are more restaurants than us. There's a decent amount in town doing the same thing. Okay, so that we're saying, and that the town building inspector said that if we enclosed our porch, okay, then we could solve that problem. But this is Rehoboth Beach, guys. Everybody wants to sit on that darn porch. Okay, so we're not asking for something any different than what we did before. Okay, so if we're asking that if you're going to revoke the June 1st to November, then at least let us do what we were doing now and last summer while we're working on getting either the porch thing done or the porch built, which we don't want to do. Okay, but give us the time to do it. June 1st can't get that done. And by the way, most of us are open. So it's a tremendous change. So you wanted me to ask a question, don't you?
I'm still thinking, just go ahead.
Okay. The, and the, all the rules were followed, everything was done to code, everything was approved, okay? The ABC, by the way, already says, they believe we're fully grandfathered on the porch. It's just it's the interpretation of the zoning code, and we understand that, okay? But give us time to at least figure that out. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Chip.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't go away yet. You're a benefactor of the situation at Egg, because.
And Egg is exactly the same. They have a small porch out there with X chairs on it.
Right.
So you think by doing this, they're going to have their 750, which they had last summer, which was great for the town of Rehoboth Beach as I see it, because everybody came into town and saw beauty, okay? Now, according to this interpretation, they would lose 12 to 16 seating areas out there for no reason other than it was an interpretation of the zoning code. Well, an Egg's a perfect example because it's awesome. Okay, it's what we need for restaurants in this town, I think.
Thank you, Chip. Did you announce your name at the beginning?
Oh, I'm sorry. My real name is Luther Hearn. Okay? And I go by Chip. And I'm at 6 Rehoboth Avenue, 8 Rehoboth Avenue, and 52 Baltimore Avenue.
And you're talking about Somewhere Restaurant.
Right, and that's at 52
somewhere,
Baltimore.
Somewhere, right?
Right.
Somewhere.
Somewhere.
Who's on first? Carol, thank you, Chip. Seriously, thank you very much. Carol, go ahead.
I neglected that also. Carol Everhart, Rehoboth Beach, Dewey Beach Chamber. So we had a board meeting yesterday. This was discussed at length, and the board was very clear, and it was unanimous, that they could support on private property, that they are allowed to do what they were allowed to do last year. Until November 1st would be fine. They said until the end of season, but that would be fine. But that was their conclusion after much discussion and listening to a lot of business owners. So private property, allowed to do what you did last year till November 1.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you. Anybody else? Come up, identify yourself, and then you know what else I'm going to ask you.
First, Cindy Lovett for Canal Street and the landlord for the Egg Restaurant. I want to say that if Somewhere could not do what they did last year, do that again, ongoing, I think that would be so sad because it was one of the coolest vibes. And to me, outdoor dining is all about vibe. You go into any city, not Rehoboth, that outdoor dining just sucks you in. Like New York City even, the first thing you go is like, I want to eat there, I want to eat there, because of all the outdoor stuff. But regarding the 750 square feet, if anyone could find a rationale behind the 750 feet, why it's there, that'd be one thing. If there were any problems with outdoor dining above 750 feet during COVID, that would be another thing. But there wasn't, as far as I know. I see absolutely no negative effect on any larger amount of outdoor dining than we can possibly get in this town. So I would like to ask you, please, to just remove the 750 square feet and let the vibe just be there. So thank you. And I love your dining.
Thank you. I envision you up there with pom-poms. I think you're a good cheerleader. Carolyn, come ahead.
Carolyn Diefendorfer, 113 Newcastle. I agree with what everybody said. The 750 doesn't make sense. If you restrict, say, Egg to 750, they're just going to move their tables closer. And I don't know who today wants to be sitting close to anyone. COVID's not gone. And if I can be further away from people and be outside, that's what I want to do. So I think we need to encourage restaurants to have outdoor dining and to spread out if you can. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm always reluctant to make big changes, and I think big changes would be increasing the size of the limitations there. So I have a little hesitation there. Is there anybody else from the public that wants to speak? If not, I'll close the public session on this. Is there any further discussion among the commissioners?
I'm confused again, but I know someone will help me. The 750, is it in the zoning code?
270-19, use restrictions, that's been the maximum size of a dining patio, yes.
So aren't I back to where I was with the other, that what's problematic here is because it's in the zoning code, it triggers the other process of changing the zoning code. And then my question is, well, what happens in the meantime while we're looking at the zoning code? Am I confusing myself? I'm on medication, so somebody tell me if I'm confusing myself for no reason.
So I guess what I'd say is when the rules were relaxed during the pandemic, the 750 was not in play. You could go larger than 750. So what's being contemplated today is if you extend the date so that the rules are relaxed to November 1, do you as a Board of Commissioners still allow the 750 square feet to be relaxed so they can go larger than 750? Or do you now want to reimpose the 750 square foot restriction until November 1? Make sense?
It does, but doesn't that say to me we can have it both ways? That for this summer, we could have, in essence, what we had last summer. And then simultaneously, if we wanted to look at
Increasing the size of the
yes, thank
patios
you,
beyond 750.
increasing the size,
You could. That's an option.
is that where we're trying to go? Or is that where I'm trying to go?
It's where some of us are trying to go.
I'm just trying to look at the downside of, you know, everybody knew June 1st was coming. That's a known fact. So when rules are relaxed, maybe there should have been some forethought as to what are we going to do when they're restricted again. So to me, as I sit here and think about it, it just begs for a solution that you could have it both ways. And isn't everybody happy if we have it both ways? Hello? Y'all are real, aren't you? I see you.
Mayor, can I make a motion?
Yes, Commissioner Shanowski, go ahead.
I'd like to move that we extend the June 1, 2022 date revoking the allowance of dining patios on private property, which are now not in compliance with current code, to November 1, 2022. Period. Nothing else after that.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ed Shanowski and a second by Commissioner Tim Bennett to move to extend the June 1, 2022 date revoking the allowance of dining patios on private property, which are not in compliance with code, to November 1st, 2022. Is there any further discussion?
May I ask, Mayor, does the maker of the motion intend to limit the motion to currently approved outdoor dining on private property, or is it broad enough that somebody could come in and ask for outdoor dining privileges for their restaurant when they're not currently approved?
I left it open for that to be allowable. If someone wanted to come in and apply with building and licensing for what others currently have. Mayor, you agreed that you wouldn't want such restriction in the motion, correct?
Whatever you like.
Yeah,
So if you
No, but that's a good clarification, you know, because you brought it up earlier. Does it apply, and Susan too, I think, does it apply to every
Yeah, that's what I was
restaurant
Yeah.
which wants to serve alcohol? Are they able to do this? And the answer was yes, unless a restriction is put on there. So there's no restriction on there. So yes, any restaurant serving alcohol that wants to do it, outdoor dining area can do so with, based on this, if it's favorable, no size limitations. they do have to fit the other criteria. They have to meet the zoning code.
Well, they don't, but except they're not. I mean, that's where I was just going to say, that we're basically setting aside the code for the summer, right?
We're doing what we did last year.
We set aside the code during the pandemic.
Well, but last year, we set aside the code, but we set aside the code with respect to location. In other words, we allowed them to cross property line.
Right.
And with respect to size limitations. They still have to meet the zoning code 270-19 and no music on the patio and no wet bars on the patio and all that criteria. So really, this has to do with location and size
And
limitations.
I guess, perhaps that ought to be part of it, just so that there's not, a misunderstanding. I guess my feeling is, when you make it totally open-ended like that, rather than just putting a new number on it, which we can't do because we need to probably have a lot more data before we can revise the 750. But when you leave it open-ended, it's going to be hard to come back from that when we go to visit the code. So, if we're going to set aside code, what is on the code now, and say it doesn't apply, then I guess we ought to be specific about what parts of the code don't apply.
Well, what if you were a new restaurant?
Well, and that came up. I mean,
So that's my point. So why would it not apply to a new restaurant? Because I think the language was pretty clear why it was revoked and what we did. I mean, that was pretty well explained. I don't think we're just saying we're going to throw the code out. I mean, we agreed we're going to look at amending the code.
Right.
This is just for this season, June 1st, which is happening pretty darn quick.
Right. Oh, no, totally. I totally agree with that. I totally am in favor of it. I just thought it should reflect both the time period, the revocation, as well as the elements that we're really talking about here. I don't know.
Right, it seems like it's only, we're only talking about size, right? No larger than 750 square feet, and location, because it's on a abutting property is now allowable. It seems to me that every other requirement of a dining patio would be still in play.
So do we need,
Or enforceable, I guess is the
so
word I should use.
do we need to memorialize that in that motion?
I mean, the only reason I'm thinking that is because we've talked about so many combinations and permutations that it just seems like we ought to define it, since we're here with all of those possibilities in front of us.
I'm not inclined to amend the motion.
Okay.
Well, if it went beyond what I believe the intention is, then it would be coming back in front of us again, because I have absolutely no desire to allow deviations of the zoning code other than location and size limitations, if that's the way it's voted.
Why can't we just say that, so that there's no misunderstanding?
You can make a motion to amend the motion.
No, that's what I would do. What did you just say? You just said it for the...
So you'd be making a motion to amend the motion that's on the floor to restrict or to limit the relaxation of the zoning code as it relates to dining patios to location and size.
As was done during the pandemic, yeah. Yeah, to keep it the same as what was done then.
If you don't, I'll amend my motion if that's fine.
Yeah, sure.
I move to extend the June 1, 2022 date revoking the allowance of dining patios on private property, which are currently not in compliance with location and size limitation of such patio with current code to November 1, 2022. Is that satisfactory?
Yeah,
I didn't hear you say limit relaxation to location and size as was done during the pandemic. I thought that was the intent.
I thought you said, did you say that?
I thought I did.
Yeah.
I thought you said
I was listening.
It says with regard to or something.
I only listen to half of what they say anyway.
Now we know.
I'm sorry, would you mind just doing, rereading it?
I move to extend the June 1, 2022 date revoking the allowance of dining patios on private property, which are currently not in compliance with code related to the location and size limitations of such patios that were relaxed during the pandemic to November 1, 2022.
It's a little choppy, but I think we got it all.
Second. Second.
All right. Do we have to withdraw that first motion?
Yeah, probably to be parliamentarily correct, you should withdraw your first motion in favor of your second.
I withdraw my first motion.
First motion. Was there a second on the first
I
motion?
withdraw my first
You
second
withdraw
motion.
with that. So now can we go to the motion in front of us?
And it was already seconded yet
We've
again.
already got,
And-
so we have a,
and Mr. Bennett
we have a
seconded.
motion by Commissioner Ed Chernowski and a second by Commissioner Tim Bennett to move, to extend the June 1st, 2022 date revoking the allowance of dining patios on private property, which are currently not in compliance with the code, and additional language relating to location and size limitations. Is there any further discussion? With that, I'd like to call the question. Commissioner Jay Legret. Well, we've had discussion in the public, and I closed the pub. You want to come up? Come on up. Otherwise, you'll be disruptive.
Thank you. Walter Brittingham, 123 Henlopen Avenue. I don't have any objections about the extensions or what you're trying to do. I think it's a very special group of people. I think the commercial end is being very favored, but I'm not in objection or violent to it. But when you start changing codes, and I am sure Glenn, for a fee by the hour, et cetera, can come back and defend anything. He doesn't say he wins or loses, but he gets paid for it. But you're violating building codes, and you're already saying you did it last time for a reason, and so now we do it this time for a reason. So now the next time someone else comes in, you had a tradition of then changing codes, and we had Lewis do something like that recently, and we don't know what all comes forward to your board legally. We don't know what you change. We don't know what the bills are for that. It's not a money issue, it's a procedure issue. And the last time it was because of legal points and helping the industry. But are we going to, every time we don't like the rules, the code, are we going to change it because we've set a precedent? And I think it's dangerous ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public want to contribute?
Can I just
Yeah.
clarify something on that? So the only reason I think the Board of Commissioners is able to do what you're doing, what you just did today, is because it was properly approved under state of emergency rules. So you're extending something that was properly approved. If this was a new zoning change, absolutely you'd have to go through the public hearing process and everything by the book. But this is an extension of something that was properly approved.
Thank you very much. With that, we're going to call the question. We've got the motion on the floor. Commissioner Jay Legree?
Aye.
Commissioner Stranowski?
Aye.
Commissioner Susan Gay?
Aye.
Commissioner Tim Bennett?
Aye.
Commissioner Tony Sharp?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye also. Another reason that just occurred to me that this is probably a good thing, because I'm very, very hesitant to have done it, frankly. But I think it's another good thing because it will help our restaurants that perhaps have to go to the alcohol commissioner again and can submit the same floor plan as they did in previous years. So maybe that's a bonus as well. With that, the vote is unanimous and it is approved. And with that, we thank you for your input. We do have more business to go into. The next item of old business, old business. Consider adoption of a resolution authorizing the city to submit an application for a drinking water matching planning grant, of which the city's portion would not exceed $25,000 for evaluating current PFAS levels observed in the city's raw water supply and investigate treatment options if approved. There we go.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, before you all is to consider an adoption of a resolution in order for the city to submit a drinking water matching planning grant. This is now, I think this would be our third drinking water matching planning grant, at least since I have been with the city. As procedure for the drinking water matching planning grant, it's required that a resolution be adopted by the Board of Commissioners. We also are required to notify surrounding jurisdictions, which we've done. So I know that the resolution was before you at the workshop meeting and is again before you today to consider adoption of that resolution.
Very good, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners? The resolution is embedded in the agenda. If there are no questions, do you want to read some of the resolution so we know which one we're working on? Do you want to?
The title probably would be good if you.
Or yeah, just, or just.
As long as I don't have to pronounce the substance, yes. Resolution of the Mayor and City Commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach authorizing the submission of a grant application for a drinking water matching planning grant for a PFAS study through the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Program.
Very good. If there's no questions, do we have a motion to adopt the resolution before us?
So moved.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Susan Gay and a second by Commissioner Tony Sharp to adopt the resolution in front of us, authorizing the city to submit an application for a drinking water matching grant. As noted on the agenda, is there any public comment? No? Then I'll do a group vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no, and the motion is carried. With that,
Okay.
Your chair,
Oh,
so you'd like,
okay, it is.
right, so you'd like to just.
Okay, so the next one is to consider adoption of a resolution authorizing the city to submit an application to the Office of Drinking Water to use the state revolving fund program to fund a project to remove lead service lines and lead joints in water mains throughout the city.
Thank you, Commissioner. This resolution, again, was before you all at our last workshop meeting. Again, it is to provide the city of Rehoboth Beach with updated, properly sized, and safe water lines by replacing several of the 4-inch diameter water lines which contain lead joints. It is a program that does not require a match for the city. So again, the resolution is before you all for consideration.
Thank you.
I move for adoption of the resolution.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so do I need to repeat it?
No.
Okay, then I guess we'll, like the other one, we'll do a group vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And I don't know how the mayor is going to vote on that one.
Yeah, that's true, that's true. So it passes though.
You're just in time.
On the second one?
it in time?
Yeah,
You just
yeah,
missed the vote, but you're
We
here.
just adjourned.
yeah.
Right, right.
Okay, here.
All right. Are there any questions
Well,
from
we
the
already did that. We
commissioners?
already
You've
voted.
done that. Are there any members of the public that'd like to say anything? Do we want Robert to say anything? We're all right?
Unless he wants to.
Well, very good. And do we have somebody to make a motion?
It was already done and already voted.
We already voted.
Oh, it's done.
It is, if you'd like to cast a vote there, there's still time. They haven't moved on to the next item, so.
Well, goodness gracious. Well, thank you. Thank
See
you.
how quickly we can move along when you're not chairing?
I'm not needed. Thank you. Thank you very much. With that, the next item of old business is conduct an executive session for the purpose of discussing the content of documents containing confidential information about the hiring process and employment terms that are excluded from the definition of public record under Freedom of Information Act as permitted by 29 Del C, Section 10,004B6. If it's the pleasure of the commissioners to go into executive session, I would entertain a motion to do so. And if so, I would like the entire agenda language read into that motion, please.
Mayor, we can take the next action without going into executive session, right?
We can. The intent of the executive session is to review the pamphlet that was sent out to us as a draft. But we could choose to forego that and consider voting on it right away, if you like.
I have no reason to go into executive session. I think it's fine as it's been sent to us.
Well, it's the opportunity for others to ask questions or something. I know everybody didn't comment on it, but whatever the pleasure of the commissioners is.
Well, is it a public document yet?
It's a draft one right now until some more work is done on it. It will be a public document, obviously, because it's a recruitment document, and everybody will be able to access it, not just applicants.
So I guess.
So what we have in front of us is a recruitment brochure that is seeking approval, as well as some first-year goals, understanding that both of them could eventually be changed if need be. But this is hopefully the final draft, and we're seeking some
So Mayor,
consensus.
just for me, I read it, I responded, I have reviewed the most current one that was submitted, and I have no need for an executive session.
Okay.
Nor do I.
I just want to give everybody opportunity. If
nor do
not,
I.
then yes, we would entertain a motion, which is the next item of business, consider approval of a recruitment brochure and first-year goals in the hiring of a new city manager. Ed, you want to make a motion, please?
Do you want to go to the public first? Not
Like a motion, and then.
Okay, sure.
And then,
I would move approval for the recruitment brochure and first-year goals in the hiring of the new city manager that we've recently been provided.
Second.
we have a motion by Commissioner Ed Chernowski and a second by Commissioner Legree to give our approval of the recruitment brochure and first-year goals draft that have been provided to us. Is there any additional discussion among the commissioners? Members-
Want to have a sense of when that will be public.
Potentially 10 days to a week.
Oh, that long? Okay.
Yeah. Walter, come on ahead.
Thank you very much. Walter Brittingham, 123 Henlopen Avenue. I've asked in the past, I accept because I guess somewhere in the background there's legal precedent, but there has not been any request from the board to the public. If you have anything that you think that you would like to see in the hiring of a new city manager, male, female, whomever they might be, there's been no invitation for that at all. And one of the things that I run into quite often, for instance, Evan, I have no problem with you, but there's nothing. Have you been, I guess I can't ask for an answer with that. Has Evan been sworn in? I just pick Evan as an example, because you're sworn in, but none of you swear that the stuff that you do and the information that you will give out is the truth. So if the person from the Public Works Department down at the sewer plant comes in and can't take a position right away because they don't comply or they lie, or the general employee comes in, any lies or anything constitutes provisions for removal from office without further reason. Everybody that works for the city should swear to tell the truth, and that the information coming back from you all included should have that condition. And I doubt that'll make it into your brochure. If you have lied, the general person's lied, anybody coming forward for a position in the city, lying should be a reason for removal. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Anybody else, members of the public? If not, we have a motion on the floor and a second to consider approval of the recruitment brochure and first-year goals draft presented to us by the Raftalis City Manager Search Company. Is there any further discussion among commissioners?
Just a question, Mayor. I'm assuming when the consultant publishes that brochure, it will then be put on the city's website?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's actually in some of our literature, I think. where it's going to be. But again, yes, it will have access by the public as well as the applicant. With that, I'll just do a group vote, if you don't mind. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and the motion's carried unanimously. With that, we'll go to new business, and there is no new business identified. Commissioner announcements and comments. I just, for the heck of it, want to share with you some of what I've been doing in the last month. I've spoken in front of the Delaware State Federation of Women's Clubs, spoken in front of the International Fire Chiefs Association, Association of Coastal Towns, SCAT dinner. I've attended a local government day at Legislative Hall. There's a wind symposium tonight that I'm headed to. WTOP radio interview, local Fox 5 later, New Jersey TV. There's a lot in the news lately having to do with the storm, of course, and reparations. And it's just been a very, very busy week. Are there any other commissioner announcements or comments?
That's why you get the big bucks, sir.
That's why. Let's review future meeting dates real quick. Tuesday, May 24th at 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. There's a Mayor and Commissioner CDP meeting. And they,
But there is no longer a noon special.
the city manager's meeting in the middle will now be canceled. Thank you. And with that, is there any additional citizen comment? Seeing none, I would say this meeting is adjourned at 3:58 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very productive.